as usual, as we always do, we always start with defining what we are talking about. Today we are talking about free will. So أول حاجة خصنا نسولو الكويشن شنو هي هاد free will؟ شنو كنقصدو بالفري will؟ Okay, whoever wants to answer, go ahead. Let's start with you, Osama.
Yo, I keep losing buttons at start. Mute and unmute.
Okay. Have you heard what I...
Yeah, smash. I think like simply free will is are we able to do whatever we feel like doing? Simply put it this way.
Okay, meaning are we free to choose what we do? Or بالدارجة واش هذاك الشيء اللي كنديرو حنا اللي باغي نديروه ولا لا؟ واش هذاك الشيء اللي كنديرو من الاختيار ديالنا ولا ماشي من الاختيار ديالنا؟
Exactly.
Do you guys have any other definitions؟ أي واحد اللي عنده شي definition أخرى وبغى يقولها feel free to jump in.
صافي واش ضروري نبقاو نميوتيو ونانميوتيو؟ بلاش ياك.
ياس غير إلا كان عندك صداع دير، إلا بغيتي بلاش.
أنا كتسمع من عندي صداع؟
لا ما كيتسمعش.
صافي حيت أنا مريح في السطح. يوجلي كيكون البرد.
Yeah.
Okay, here's the most simple definition that I found so far of free will. So it's basically the ability to choose differently. Do you guys get it?
Yes, differently.
Yeah.
Like, for example, if you go back like 5 minutes into the past, you should have the ability to take a different action from the one that you already took. If you have that ability, that means that you have free will. If not, then free will doesn't exist.
I think your definition will give us more interesting discussions, because if I could go back in time 5 minutes in the past and still made the same action, is it because I chose to make that action, or is there some other factors that I'm not aware of that made me choose to make that action?
Exactly.
Yep. Most likely those factors of which you're not aware are the ones that made you choose that particular action.
Okay.
Well, time is a tricky concept itself, so I don't think we can use time as a judgment for free will or not.
Said was rolling his eyes. He has something to say.
No, it wasn't rolling. No, I was like, time, 5 minutes back. I don't know. But free will for me is, like you said, the ability to choose differently, like to actually make a choice, because and not have that choice be dictated by things that are outside of your will, so to speak. And yeah.
Okay guys, باش نقسموا راسنا دابا درنا الديفينيشن. سو شكون كي اوكي درنا الديفينيشن دابا شكون اللي كيقول بان كاينه فري ويل وشكون اللي كيقول ما كايناش؟ الا ما بغاش يهضر تايب ات ان ذا تشات. واش كاين شي واحد كي think ولا كيسحب بان كاينه فري ويل؟
basically question ديال البارح تاع واش مخير الانسان واش مخير او مسير.
Yes.
I prefer asking that question that way, like saying is بنادم مخير أو مسير, because I'll be direct. Like I may say both. For example, this is my point.
Interesting. Yeah, I
So
agree
that
with you. For me, I have that view too. I will explain later why. What do you guys think?
Okay, for as far as that view is concerned, you are basically a compatibilist. So compatibilism is the view that says free will does and does not exist. So it tries to reconcile free will and determinism, because these are the two sides of the debate: determinism and the free will, or the as they call as the proponents of free will call themselves libertarians, because it's about having free choice to choose whatever you want.
Mm.
And how can we differentiate between a libertarian and a what is the other one?
Determinist.
Yeah, no, the ones that start with COMP. Compatibilistic.
Compatibilist. Yeah.
So what's the exact difference between libertarianism and compatibilism?
So the difference is that libertarians claim that free will does exist. It totally exists, right? But compatibilism say that free will actually not exists, but in a limited way. It's limited. It does exist, but it's limited. There are things that you have control over, and there are other things that you have no control over. So that's compatibilism.
Okay. Got it.
That's interesting because there is this thing in spiritual circles that's called non-duality, and it says that every duality that exists in life must collapse because that's truth or something. So free will and determinism is a duality, and each defines the other by contrast. So yeah, I mean, I see it the same way too. It's hard for me to judge whether there's free will or it's all deterministic, because they both seem to be the case for me.
What about you, Usam?
Well, I think the question of free will, as far as philosophy is concerned, must remain a question, because منين بدات الفلسفة حتى لدابا وهي ديما the fact أنها كتبقى ديما a question هي اللي كتخلي الفرصة لمور ديبيت والمور more concepts كيبانو فهمتيني. but personally I would say I'm a determinist. From so many aspects, like psychology or biology, I believe that I am a determinist being, that I have no choice.
Okay.
And my will is just an illusion. No matter how many choices I think I made, that fully, even I'm aware fully that I made them by I don't know, so many.
By choice.
Yeah, by choice. Still, it's out of my reach. Because إلا جينا نشوفو اللايرز ديالهم ديبلي غنلقاو بأن شي عوامل خارجية هما اللي حتمات عليه أنني نختار دوك التشويسز.
Yes, got. So واش كاين شي واحد معنا كيبليف بأنه كاينة فري ويل، يعني كاين فري ويل، حيت حنا دابا الفيوز اللي بانوا لينا دابا غير determinism compatibilism and قلنا somehow in between. شي وحدين فينا كاينين in between، يعني كيقولوا كاينة وما كايناش at the same time. Fatima, what do you think?
Guys, I have a question first.
Yeah.
Based on Osama's comments, are we free first?
I was gonna ask that. I was gonna ask what's the difference between freedom and free will.
Yeah, are we free first?
Oh, that's
We-
another
Because-
subject, man.
Yeah,
Freedom.
we need to define it.
It's so subjective.
Yeah, we need to
Freedom
define
to each
each one. نمشي كل حاجة define بوحدها.
Yeah,
Like-
so
Because
freedom.
as I know, it depends on the circumstances اللي كنطيحوا فيهم. فهمتي to make our choices ولا نديروا شي حاجة ولا شي لعب. depends على انت شنو قدامك وانت شنو فاش تحشي.
Okay, freedom is another thing. مثلا تكون freedom عندها بزاف المينين depends on the person. مثلا تقدر تكون a black person but socially you are not acceptable. تما عاوتاني كتدخل فيها الفريدم ديال الريس. ولا مثلا تقدر تكون في البريزن تما كتدخل فيها الفريدم ديال living in a society. So freedom depends on the person, right? حنايا ما نركزوش على الفريدم ولكن نركزوا على free choice ولا free will. يعني doesn't matter الفريدم اللي عندك واش عندك free choice. مثلا واش الا كنتي في البريزن ولا black person ولا it doesn't matter your freedom. واش you have a free choice to do what you want.
Well, free will is basically the freedom of making choices, or
Yes. Do you make
making
choices on
making
your
choices.
own?
Yeah, independent choices that are independent of any influence.
Exactly. That's the question. حيت إلا جينا نبقاو نهضروا على كمفاهيم فضفاضة we won't get to the point.
Yes.
The way you put it said, it's the best way to try to answer or to try to see each one's perspective about the matter.
Yeah.
But guys, we haven't yet answered the question. Are we actually free?
Yes. That's the question. واش فايت ليكم درتو شي حاجة كتسحبوها من your own choice ولا في نظركم أي حاجة كديرو is influenced by something?
Exactly. And I said no.
I said no. I'm not free.
Same.
Yeah, man.
I think the same way.
I think
Our environment.
Well, okay, listen. Our thoughts, emotions, and a lot of habitual behaviors are determined by our past and like so many influences. That's true. But you don't actually have to, be swayed by any of those. Like what you are, you're not your thoughts or your emotions or any of your habits. So even if your thoughts, emotions, and all of this is like influenced and habituated by outside influences, consciously, and you can do this you can distance yourself from them. If you can distance yourself, then theoretically you can have a say in whatever, in what you do, in what you think, and because you can be swayed by them. This is what usually happens. Or you can actually distance yourself from them because you're not them. And then maybe you have some free will, some conscious free will, maybe.
Is it possible to separate yourself from all influences?
If you do, then life would be meaningless in a way. Or at least
إلا
that's what I
طلع
think.
شي جبل عايشين في راسك maybe. No social networks, no people around you, just like a beast,
Huh.
But
That's actually an interesting point.
But you're only talking about external factors. What about the
Exactly,
internal
yes.
factors?
No, I mean it's
yourself.
all internal. It's emotions, thoughts. And habits. It's all internal, and these are also associated with external influence. So external, internal influence, and you don't actually have to let them dictate to you. You actually kind of have a choice because, through meditation, like we talked about meditation the other day, and you can actually be empty awareness, and once you're empty awareness, you can just observe anything and everything that happens around you. And once you observe it, you distance yourself from it, and you don't have to be influenced by it. Maybe you get to have a say in what's going around you then.
So you mean that you can actually control your own internal factors, like the thoughts and the emotions
No,
that you
no.
experience?
You can observe them and not let them dictate what you do. For example, like you have a thought, like for example, you might have like fearful thoughts because of dogs, because when you were a kid, a dog attacked you, and now you have a fear of dogs. That's outside of your control, and your emotions, your thoughts, everything goes crazy once you see the dog. But
Man, you need to take off those
ما عندوش
earphones.
هذا المشكل.
There's an
Osama.
awful noise coming from there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, like what I was saying, these things happen, like they're there, and you probably can't control them. But you don't have to be influenced by them. Like even when the fear, even when the thoughts, even when your body's going crazy nearby a dog, you can still choose. If you distance yourself from all of these, you can still choose to go to the dog and pet him and play with him. It's possible, I think.
Well, what if it's a lion that's there in front of you? Are you going to pet that lion?
You can if you don't care about dying.
Your survival mechanisms will kick in, and you will simply run away without any control. You'll just freak out. So there you have it.
Well, not necessarily. You don't have to freak out. Actually, some people don't freak out. Like, if you stay still and you don't freak out, the lion will probably not attack you. But if you freak out, the lion will attack you.
Well, they are trained one or not.
دابا said, you think that we can prevent external factors from dictating our choices, right?
Yeah, theoretically.
Like the example you said through meditation, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's possible to distance yourself from your thoughts and emotions because these come and go all the time,
Okay, let's take this example. Meditation. How do you know about meditation?
أسامة وقيلا عندك صداع ديال الشارجور.
Yeah,
لا لا انا رقدت لك في السطح الصاد. على البرد الريح وقال.
لا المشكل في الليزيات I think earphones.
You sure?
Yeah. Try taking them off and see if the
إيدو
noise.
مرجعة.
What about now?
Oh man,
It got worse.
well, where's the noise coming from?
عندك الدبال الخضراء صح.
What about now?
دابا مزيان.
اوكي حيدتهم كاع.
Okay, دابا good.
المهم سعد بغيت نهضر مع سعد على البلان تاع meditation.
Take your
You
time.
think meditation like preventing, as you said, external factors from dictating your choices in life, right? And how do you know about meditation? How did it came to your mind?
Well, from external sources. I'm not saying that. Yeah, I'm not saying that. That I am this way, or like, yeah, that's true. I mean, the way I discovered through meditation is like from outside influence, and I wouldn't think that this is possible otherwise. But once you discover it's possible, then maybe that's all that matters from them. I mean, once you actually can do that, once you actually achieve that, then it doesn't matter how you figure that ability, how you figured it out, how you figured that a possibility, because it's possible if it's possible.
Nah, man. It matters, man, because that's the definition of determinism. It's external stuff that leads you. Like if you look down, like it's like a fucking loophole going through. شنو هي الحاجة اللي أدت لهاد الحاجة؟ شنو هي الحاجة اللي أدت لهاد الحاجة؟ The first time عرفتي شنو هي yoga, for example, or عرفتي شنو هي meditation مثلا through online or through a book. ماشي تزاديتي وعرفتي that you can meditate by yourself. فهمتيني؟
Yeah, but I
Yeah.
think Saad was lucky enough
Someone
to come across an external influence that showed him how to distance himself from, or to give him that free will.
Yeah, I understand. Yeah. It's true. I mean, I'm not saying that. I mean, it is the norm. I think it's the norm that people are just deterministic and living in a deterministic way. And I'm not sure if there is any one person in the world that's not living in a deterministic way. But maybe it's possible to, maybe it's a degree, maybe it's like a spectrum of like how influenced are you by your environment, or how much of free will you have. Like it's a spectrum, it's not like 1 or 0. And so maybe once you discover this, maybe you tap more into your free will, and you're less influenced by your environment. And even if you do, I mean, you will probably be still influenced by your environment. I mean, it's impossible to not, kind of, because like just the food you eat, you're influenced by that.
Okay, guys, since you're talking about determinism or free will, I just want to ask you a question. Does anyone here have an idea or has already heard about this concept or this idea of going with the flow? This idea of Taoism, actually, of going with the flow.
Idea of
Yep.
what?
Going with the flow. They
Going
call it
with
the
the
flow.
flow.
No, you
Yeah,
said
I heard
another
about
word.
that. Taoism.
Taoism.
Taoism, yeah.
Yes, it's an Eastern philosophy.
Okay. Like the yin
going
and
with
yang.
flow زعما باش
Yin and yang,
تنتبه مع
Taoism.
Yeah. Yin yang, yeah.
Okay.
زعما
So,
going with the flow زعما تنتبه مع أي حاجة قدامك ولا
not really. Well, I will
part of
explain
it.
it. This idea of going with the flow, actually, Taoists believe that there is something called the Tao. The Tao for them, like they can translate it as God, okay? For them, this Tao or this God is actually this way. It's called the way that every single thing in nature is going according to it. Everything's going according to the Tao. So this idea is when you feel connected to the Tao, when you connect to the Tao, you start being, I don't know what is the exact word for that, but كتولي كتعيش the simplicity and without effort. You live without effort. So you start being effortless. This is the word. So when you
spontaneous.
Yes.
So relation to free will بحال كتعرف راه ما عندكش free will وكتعيش مع الفلو مع اللايف.
ماشي ما عندكش فري ويل، عندك فري ويل، ولكن بحال ديك القضيه ديال تسلم وجهك لله في الاسلام، فهمتيني؟ يعني كتسلم الفلو اللي انت غادي فيها اللي كيمشي على العالم وكتمشي بتناسق معها، يعني بحال راه عندها ريليشن مع مديتيشن. الا درتي مديتيشن راه اصلا يس.
ولكن هذاك الفلو واش الفلو by your choice ولا you are following something you are not choosing?
You are following the universe if you want. You are following the flow of the universe or the creator of the universe. And you start connecting to it in a way that, for example, when you start doing some kind of meditation, you just feel maybe inspired, because I was going to get to this idea of inspiration later on, because it is also in the Abrahamic faiths, this idea of inspiration. There is this concept of the Holy Spirit, Ar-Ruh al-Qudus. Actually, the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, once he said to one of the companions, فَلْيُؤَيِّدْكَ اللَّهُ بِرُوحِ الْقُدُسِ. You know, so this Holy Spirit, as like also Christians believe in it, like the Trinity, God, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Like this Holy Spirit is actually something that gives you inspiration in life. So when you become helped or being simply helped by this Holy Spirit, or you have it by your side, you can feel that you start being inspired. And when you are inspired, you can follow this determination or this flow of the world or the universe. And by doing that, you actually still have your free will. Like you just غير انت كتسلم بديك الواي اللي غادي عليه العالم, and you start being effortless. This is my point. So effortless, free will, etc.
So to understand you exactly, تقدر تعطينا شي مثال from your life اللي كتحس بيه بأنك درتي شي حاجة من your own free will.
Okay. Since I have a religious background, I may come back to religion again. Like when, for example, I pray, okay? I know that I pray out of free will. Because I want to obey God. I want to obey Allah, okay? It was a command of Him, and He actually told us, like, لا إكراه في الدين. You know, if you want to follow it, follow it. If you don't want to, like, you're still free, but you have to bear in mind the consequences. So this is it. I have this idea of Islam, Muslim wajhiya lillah, and when I for example I do this prostration, السجدة ولا كنقول سجد وجهي للذي خلقه وصوره وشق سمعه وبصره حولي وقوته. يعني he created me, and he somehow controls me in the way that le contrôle.
محمد.
Yes.
Yeah, دابا بدينا كندخلوا للبليف. Okay, let me ask you this. Now you said that you choose to believe, right?
Yes.
Well, can you choose not to believe?
I can, but I'm convinced that this way is the good one for me, so I'm following it by my will.
Who convinced you? Who convinced you?
Well, you can say that the Quran and Sunnah, or the tradition of Islam, made me feel convinced. Like I felt like this is the way that I want to follow.
Don't you think your childhood upbringing as a Muslim, born to Muslim family, had like an influence on your religious, let's say, identity?
Somehow, I may say that just being brought up in a Muslim family, or being born as a Muslim, is a very good blessing. But when it comes to being religious, I don't think that it was because of my family orientation. I had this faith when I was a child, and this concept that we call in Islam fitra, you know, that you're born with it, you're the fitra of Islam. So it started growing, and I always came back to it. Like I always, actually, this concept is that you are born with the truth in you. Like you can understand and get the truth because you are born with the mind. And with this mind, you can have conscience, which will make you see clearly what is wrong and what is right. So, with that being said, or with that being had, I can differentiate between what is good and bad, and with time, I can go with the flow and with the way that God wants me to follow.
Okay,
with my free will, of course.
Here's an objection. If you were born to an atheist family, would you still be a Muslim?
That's another issue because I'm not time. I'm not the controller of time to know that.
محمد
This has
No,
nothing to do with time.
محمد من قبيله وانت كتجبد by explaining this I have no problem with your belief and the way you are living your life, but من قبيله وانت while trying to explain this point كتجبد in the same sentence you are using free will, the word free will, and the word following. Don't you think it's a contradiction?
Not really. Well, when I introduced myself at the very beginning, I said that I'm kind of paradoxical because the world that we live in, as I said that there is this non-duality, and I see it with this concept of Taoism to yin and yang. Like I know that I'm following it, but I'm the one that is choosing to follow it. So with my free will, I'm also following.
ويل بزاف الحوايج كنصاحبوا راسنا باننا حنا اللي اختاريناهم. نعطي مثال بسيط، مثلا غير السونغ اللي كيعجبونا وكنرتاحوا نسمعوهم رايت، كنصاحبوا راسنا حنا اللي اختاريناهم، ولا حنا اللي اختارينا هذوك السونغز راه كيعجبونا، ولكن it's not you. it's قريت هذا البوك سميتو The Power of Habits وكيشرح فيه هذا الكونسيبت ديال why we like certain songs على others، وشرح واحد الكونسيبت شحال هادي الراديوز كانوا فاش كيبغيو يميكيو شي سونغ هيت، يعني يسمعوها الناس بزاف، شنو كانوا كيديروا؟ كانوا كيشدوا تو popular songs وهاد نيو سونغ كيحطوها وسط هذيك popular song باش الناس كيتعاودوا يسمعوها، وفاش الناس كيتعاودوا يسمعوا هاد نيو سونغ كيوليو كيكريفيو ويسمعوها again and again and again. قبل ما يلقاو هاد الكونسيبت شنو كانوا كيديروا؟ كانوا فاش كتخرج شي سونغ جديده وكيبغيو يديروا لها ادفرتايزين، فاش كيطلقوها في الراديو بنادم كيقلب الاذاعه ما كيسمعهاش، ولكن من بعد قلبوها ولاو كيدخلوها وسط جوج اغاني لي بابير اللي كتعجب الناس، والناس ولاو كيسحبوا راسهم راه هذيك السونغ كتعجبهم حيت هما اللي كتعجبهم بيرسونالي، ماشي شي واحد اخر اللي خلى ديك السونغ تعجبهم.
But that's a feeling. This is not a free will, in my opinion.
Most of the thing اللي كنصاحبوا راه حنا فري كنديروهم by our own choice، راه we are just influenced by something
okay,
else.
you know Chinese people كياكلوا سراغزيت, right?
Yes.
If you were to eat سراغزيت right now, if we were to present you سراغزيت, would you have the free will to eat it or not? Would you be able to eat it? Like, imagine yourself being Moroccan right now, and imagine yourself being Chinese. So if you were Chinese and we gave you سراغزيت, and we would tell you, do you want to eat it? And he eats it, and he says, yeah, I eat it because this is my free will. Whereas he was like raised that way, like, it's a cultural thing. Like, food is a very cultural thing, and it's dictated by our culture. Everyone around us eats taraghzit, so we eat taraghzit. But if you're Moroccan and that's culturally like not acceptable and disgusting, and we would tell you, do you want to eat it or not? And you say, I'm not going to eat it. And you say, that's my free will. That wouldn't be your free will, so to speak, because if you were Chinese, you would eat it, gladly you will eat it. But since you're Moroccan, you would not eat it. And so whether or not you eat it, it's dictated by your culture, your food culture, and where you were born. And that's
غير اتاي المغاربه اللي كيسحبوا راسهم راه كيشربوا اتاي حيت هما باغيين يشربوا، ولكن deep down راهم influence since childhood to drink that drink، ولا كياكلوا الخبز كثر من any other culture.
Yeah.
But I think that habit does not contradict free will. I think that you still have a free will even though it's a habit.
How?
Because one day you can stop drinking it or taking it, so that's a free will.
Well,
exactly. Just the action of stopping, just the concept of stopping, it means that there is something inside you that you want to stop it.
كاين واحد اكزامبل زوين، مثلا الا قلتي لي نقدر نهز الليد اليمنيه ولا الليد اليسريه راني عندي فري ويل، ولكن هاد الكونسيبت ديال تهز الليد بغير باش تبين راه عندك فري ويل راه براسو جاست يور برايد كيحاول يبين لك راك عندك فري ويل.
That was actually a good. Yeah, that was a good example.
But
يعني-
how is like your
يعني-
pride كيحاول يوصلك؟
يعني انا اللي اي انفلونسد يور برايد باش تحاول تهز وان ليد وباش تبين لي راه عندك فري ويل، انا اللي انفلونس هاد الاكشن. مثلا
Okay,
كون ما
but-
قلتش لك كون
Yeah.
اي وازنت كون ما كنتش ديزاغريد ويز يو كاع ما كنتي غادي تجيك هاد الفكره ديال تهز الليد باش تبين لي راه
ولكن-
عندك الفري ويل.
Hold on, there's two choices there. There's the first choice of raising a hand, and there's the second choice of raising which hand. So you may influence the first choice, which is actually choosing to raise a hand, but like the second choice of choosing whether to raise the left or the right hand, you didn't influence that, so to speak.
So here we come back to this. Here we come back to this question in Arabic. هل الإنسان مخير أم مسير? So what do you think about it?
For me, guys, the one compelling argument that convinced me of determinism is the fact that you can't even control your own thoughts, let alone your own actions. Like right now, if I were to say الفيل الوردي, now everyone probably had an image of a pink elephant in your mind.
No, I had a
Now,
pink panther in my mind.
Yeah, so there you have it. You don't have, like, you didn't think of that. I influenced you to think of the pink elephant, and you still think you have free will.
Facts.
Well, I told you, thoughts are very influenced by our environment, but we're talking about actions here. Free will has to do with action.
No, free will has to do with everything, like even the thoughts, because it's about control. It's about freedom. It's
But
it's
will,
how much
what
control you
do
have.
we mean by will?
Yeah,
What's
it's the
will?
control, how much control you have over the things that you
Choice.
choose, like thinking, doing, everything.
يعني
Well,
واش تختار
yeah.
تفكر ولا دماغك اللي كيفكر؟
Wait, I think we are confused a little bit because the freedom to have a will is different from the freedom to not be influenced or being influenced. We are all influenced all the time by things, whether we want to or not. But I think the freedom of will is when we choose to take actions according to those influences or not.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes, exactly. Because I also think that we should put free will in the right frame.
Mhm.
I agree that thoughts, emotions are, well, you tell me about emotions, I cannot control those at all. Thoughts, I cannot. And even behaviors, for me personally, even if I say that maybe there's a possibility to distance yourself from your thoughts and emotions, that's easier said than done. And I can't do that currently right now. But I think it's still a possibility, maybe.
Okay, Sad
Even-
converted.
Huh?
Sad
No.
got converted.
I've always been a compatibilist. Like it's I'm just like investigating here, like is it actually possible? Is it not? Because we all seem to agree that we're very influenced. Our environment is very, and so we're trying to look for that little glimmer of free will, whether we can find it or not.
Well,
So
So
where is that?
basically you're saying غادي نبنيو القاعدة على الاستثناء، نقلبوا على the small
Memory.
examples.
Hmm.
Basically that's reaching, and it's a fallacy. It's not even an argument.
It's not a fallacy because determinism says there's no free will. But if there's a free will, if we find a free will, then it's not determinism. And maybe it's both.
اللي بغا أسامة يقصد يعني كاين بزاف الحوايج كيبينوا لينا بأننا ما عندناش فري ويل وحنا كنتسناو هذيك الحاجة الصغيرة اللي تبين لينا بأننا عندنا فري ويل.
Well, that's how we investigate. Like, that's how you try to ascertain to come to a conclusion.
some people كيقولوا بأن هذيك القضية ديال الهوب ولا ديك كتجي غير خارجه غير من اور ايجو ولا برايد باننا
No.
راح
Well, like we're trying like in our direct experience, like no, from our actual lives. واش كاين ولا لا.
Okay, so, guys, so since we're talking about free will, I have this idea that is really interesting to me, that is present in the Abrahamic faiths, which is destiny. What do you think about it?
Destiny basically is determinism in religion, put in religions, in a religious
Framework.
narrative. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
شنت كيما عندك شنت كيما عندك محمد، شنت كيما عندك destiny أو for example التوكل على الله على القضاء. It's the same thing with determinism. From my background, I'm more interested in pessimistic philosophy, and I'd say my whole life based on pessimistic philosophy. There is the concept of الحتمية أو القدرية, which is for religious people is القدر, which says the same thing basically, that we are so little and nothing is coming out of our own hands. كل شيء محتم علينا من الموت أكبر حاجة لأصغر حوايج. And the arrogance of the human nature is what gives us the illusion of trying to basically or thinking that we are in control. Like من thoughts, feelings, behaviors. أي حاجة. We try to delude ourselves that we are in control. But to be blunt, we are not. To be extreme, basically.
There is an interesting idea. I used to read this book about LSD. This guy would do like psychedelics LSD to explore his mind and the universe. He's a college professor, and he does it in a very, strict setting. And it was very fascinating. And one of the insights that when he explores his mind, he explores his psychology, his childhood, his birth, everything, his trauma, everything that dictates his life. But that's like only the first level. There is an even higher level, like archetypal. He calls it the archetypal reality, that archetypal forces. And you see these archetypal shit that, like, so to speak, controls our reality through so many psychedelic trip reports, that there is actually like way higher forces that we don't even see. Collective forces, collective mind. Even the collective mind is like only a higher step in our psychological mind. After the collective mind, there's like the archetypal mind, and after the archetypal mind, there's like the non-dual mind, or like the ultimate God mind, or so to speak. And yeah, and all of this, like it trickles down, like from one level to another level to another level to another level to our life, so to speak. And so like there's layers and layers of levels of influence. And I just thought that was an interesting thought that relates to this discussion.
Okay, go ahead, Yunus.
Yeah, if you guys don't mind, I will ask a question. إلا كان خارج الموضوع شوية وبغيتو ترجعوا فين كنا رجعوا، حيت بلي هادشي a little bit messy وما كن we don't go much forward. So the next question is, how do you live with this fact that you either have free will or you don't have it? How do you live with that personally? واش حيت some people كيشوفوا الا ما كانش عندهم free will then علاش ما غندير والو في حياتي، انا نبقى غير جالس. Everything is determined. So
Here, technically, we don't have free will, right? We all agree on this. I mean, not all of us, but I mean, the determinists out there. We agree that there is no free will, but we live as though there is free will. We have to, delude ourselves that there is free will. So we can actually live our lives in a healthy way.
Basically, yeah.
So actually, go ahead, Fatem Zahra.
I think I have something to share. I am going with the determinist ideology. We don't really have a freedom of will. And to add another idea, I think there are two كاين بحاجة ديال الأقطاب that are influencing our lives. Can the external, whether there is control from the outside, authorities from the outside that are preventing us or telling us to do things. عاوتاني إلا ما كانوش هادو كاين القطب الآخر, our internal desires بحال we're seeking pleasure, we're seeking happiness, we're seeking safety, وقاعد ديك الهيراركي نتاع needs. ما عقلتش السمية ديال الهيراركي, ولكن we as humans we need to fulfill certain desires. So me as a human who believes that I don't have a real freedom, like a real free will, if there is no influence from the outside, I will try to follow my desires. And if I'm not able to follow my desires, I will try to obey the out or understand the outside influences, so I can, go around them and find a way to go back to my desires. What do you think?
Tamzara, you think your desires are like you are in control of them? Like, for
No,
example,
absolutely not. Like
you are
what?
you are in control of good.
No,
like
I'm not in
عندك
control. I'm
مشكلة
not
في
in
الأوديو.
control of my desires.
You can have desires, but you can't actually control the desire. You can desire, but you can't desire to desire.
Of course.
But as she said, you can.
I agree with
But
that.
as she said, you can act based on your desires.
What's the difference?
You can
Yeah,
choose
you can
not
act
to
on your
act,
desires,
or to
but
act.
you cannot, create the desire. You cannot desire the desire, or
Yeah, I mean,
decide.
did I make it
Yeah.
sound as if I said I am creating desires? Because that's not what I mean. What I'm saying is that there are desires inside of me that will influence my actions, and there are outside influences that will control my actions as well. Those are the only two things that will forever, have control over me, and I will never have a real free will.
I totally agree with you. What
But I
about
think
you guys?
our desires, like our internal desires, are product of external influence. External
I agree
factors
with you as well. Yeah, I agree with this idea.
For example, Schopenhauer said with the concept of the will to live, that مش احنا اللي عايشين. The will to live هي اللي عايشة وسط منا. هي اللي كتخلينا مثلا كتخلي فينا غريزة البقاء. For example, the same thing with Richard Dawkins, the selfish gene. أن فينا واحد الجين حيت هو عالم evolutionary biologist. That gene inside of us هي اللي كتحركنا, هي اللي عايشة basically. إحنا غير a mean of transportation. So, and same thing, هادشي كامل داخل في واحد إطار تشاؤمي. فرويد جاب الايديا تاع العقل الباطن, ان our desires are product of داكشي اللي كيتسجل لنا في العقل الباطن. So basically there is nothing internal about our, for example, desires.
Osama, how do you live?
Guys,
Well, like, why does it have to be pessimistic? For me, it's not really pessimistic, to know that I'm just a biochemical puppet. I have no control whatsoever. It's not really.
guys,
philosophically
listen.
speaking, هذا هو pessimism. هادشي داخل في الإطار التشاؤمي, الفلسفة التشاؤمية. That we are basically nothing. That we have no entity of our own. We are just
Listen, can I say something? When we think about these concepts and all these ideas, like, yeah, I mean, we can talk about determinism and everything, but in our experience right now, how does it feel? How does it feel to you? How do you experience your moment, your present moment? do you experience like you have any free will, or do you expect like you are dictated by whatever?
So I will answer that question because this comes back to Eunice's question. Actually, I have this duality or this non-duality, whatever you want to call it. I believe that I have a free will, but it is limited. It is limited to what I can choose, to what I have control on. There are things that I don't have control on. Like, for example, my destiny. It was predestinated. And how I live peacefully with this concept of destiny is I know from an Islamic perspective, I have this hadith Qudsi, which says that Allah huwa ad-dahr. I'm just taking the idea from the hadith. If we want to translate ad-dahr to English, we will probably end up with this word time. So we can say from an Islamic perspective, we can say from an Islamic perspective that God is time. So when we say that God is time, He is the all-knowing. So this idea of huwa al-awwal wal-akhir wal-zahir wal-batin becomes really clear. So He knows everything. He's in control of everything, and He lets you choose. So when He is time, like He controls the past, the present, and the future, and He lets you choose in every single point of your life, and He knows it all. So it's kind of paradoxical, but it's real, and it makes sense to me, and that's why I'm living peacefully.
Yeah.
So you believe that God, before even before you were born, you believe that God had already written everything about how your life is going to unfold, right? But here's the objection. When you pray to God to when you pray to God to, for example, succeed in an exam, aren't you actually asking God to change something that He had already predetermined?
Well, my counter argument is that when we say that God is time, it becomes the future, the present, and the past become irrelevant. So when He is time, like He is fully there, like overall, like for example, this concept of dua that you mentioned. Dua changes the qadar, we know it. And yes, when He is the controller of time, or time simply, like اي حاجه تقدر تبدل، راك كتولي ديك نون دواليتي، كتولي في واحد another dimension اللي كتولي فيها الباست والبريزنت والفيوتشر ما كيبقاوش different على بعضياتهم، كتولي بحال واحد الخط مستقيم اللي صافي، اللي واحد حيتاش الكونسيبت ديال God is really difficult to absorb. That's why we can't see Him in this life, etc. etc. So ملي كنقول بلي God is time، so هو العليم الخبير، يعني عارف الماضي وعارف المستقبل وعارف باش كندوز. يقدر يكون داك الشيء بحال واحد النهار كنت كنهضر انا والوالد مثلا وقال لي يقدر يكون مثلا آدم هو آخر مخلوق. علاش لا؟ We were just talking philosophically, but it's maybe, like, who knows?
Yeah, we can.
You got me?
Okay,
So
we talk about free will and
نحاولوا ما ندخلوش البليف بزاف.
yeah. So what do you think about my question, like in your experience?
Yes.
Like
I'm peaceful. It's a peaceful experience.
No, but like to everyone who like feels that their experience is deterministic.
Yes.
How do you actually feel, like in your experience right now? Where you live in, not with like the ideas. I mean, yeah. I mean, I know we're all influenced by our childhood, emotions, thoughts, everything. But in your experience right now, does it feel like you're deterministic, or like you have some kind of free will?
I can't hear you well because the Eunice's audio is not really good.
Sad, I think you're appealing to intuition rather than a reason. You're just saying that because we feel in our direct experience that we are free, therefore free will exists. I don't think that's...
No, I'm not saying that we appear in our experience free. I'm saying, like, how do you feel in your experience? Like, it's a question. It's not a statement.
Can you repeat this question since I can hear you now well? Yes, I can hear well right now. Can you repeat your question, Ted?
Like in your actual experience, beyond what you know intellectually, do you feel like you have because that's our life, right now we're living, we're talking, we're this moment. Do you feel like you have any sliver of free will, or is it all deterministic? How does your experience feel?
Yeah, it feels free. It feels as though I'm totally in control.
But it's not.
Yeah,
I
I
feel
know.
that I feel that I have this balance of both, and I don't have any problem with it because I know that this world is made of opposites. Like Jannah, for example, my concept, my belief of Jannah, Nar, ila akhir, ila akhir. There are things that are opposites in this life, and it's okay for me. I have a free will, and there is also this concept of determinism that I believe in. So you can say I'm at the middle.
So you have a belief that there is determinism, and in your experience you feel like you have free will.
Both,
Okay, so
yes.
how do you know anything if not for your actual experience? Like, do you trust beliefs more than experience, or experience more than beliefs? How does it play out? I mean, for all of you, not just you. It's like an open question.
Well, for
Can
me,
you repeat your question, please? Said.
Well, because you say and I forgot. Muhammad said that they know it's all deterministic, but in their experience, they feel like they have free will. And so, do you actually trust your experience? Because how do you know anything without experiencing it? Because then, if we don't judge our knowledge by our direct experience, then we fall into the traps of blind beliefs. So every belief you have, you test it out in your actual current experience. So how
Anna,
does it
for
play
me,
out? Like the knowing and the actual experience. Like what is the
I
interaction there?
make, I understand your question, Sad. For me, I make a distinction between subjective and objective. I don't trust the subjective experiences of having freedom. I go with the objective facts.
What's subjective?
Experience is basically subjective. It's something that is personal.
You don't trust your experience?
No, I don't. Because
you trust someone else's experience?
no, I don't trust anyone's experience. I just trust the objective facts, the facts that are there. They are, independent of any subjectivities.
And these objective facts are based on experience or what?
No, these objective facts are based on, are based on logic and reason and
do they
science.
translate to life?
Well, actually, they just explain how life works. They don't really tell you anything how to live your life.
Okay, but you
Sad,
live in life. You don't trust like your actual experience of life, but you trust explanations of how life works. I mean, you can see how your life is working. Otherwise, how you would know how is life working? Because everyone
No,
who
I just
explains life actually sees how their life is, so they can make explanations for it.
yeah,
sad.
because I already told you that I make distinction between objective and subjective. It doesn't mean that I totally disregard the subjective part of my life. I like to live in a subjective way. Like I go with, most of my decisions are subjective. I can admit that, but I know that I should not trust those subjective experiences. I should go with the objective because that's the thing that actually explains how everything works.
I have a question. What is it about your subjective experiences that you don't trust exactly? Is it how you feel about them? Or is it that you are one person and your experience is so different from the average that you choose to understand the average, which is the normal, and ignore your own personal experience? Is my question clear?
أعطيني في example أحسن. you found subjective experience. You found it not believable enough to make the rule.
I think he's away from. He's AFK. Oh, he's not here.
Sorry,
Smash.
I was just talking. I think I muted my mic.
Zool
Yeah,
mute.
I said that I cannot trust my subjective experience because it's something personal. It differs from one person to another. Like, I can enjoy my subjective experience, but I cannot, give it the authority to tell me how everything works, how life actually is, because I should turn to something more objective, more logical.
Can you give an example?
Yeah, there are many examples. Like, you guys just let's just think about examples of this dichotomy between subjective and objective.
No, a personal one, sir.
Things that are personal, like, let me think. Right now, my mind just is blank.
Well, I'm give you some help.
I know what he means. Like,
you said you rely on science, for example.
Yeah, like, for example, you know that the Earth is like rotating around, like, a solar.
Yeah, that's a good example.
And you don't actually experience the solar system, but it's an objective fact that.
Yeah, exactly.
True, I like that.
Like, if we go for our subjective experience, it seems that the Earth is flat, but it's actually spherical.
I have a question for Yusuf. Do you think that your subjective experiences are useless? Like, they are not worth investigating or understanding or taking into consideration?
I don't think they are useless. Okay. I think they are important to me, just to me, not to anyone else's. Like, I should investigate them for myself, but I should not make them. Yeah, I should not rely on my subjective experience to explain how, like, something works, how the world is.
But they can explain how you work, if that makes sense.
Yeah, so yeah, they are personal. Just
okay.
Yeah.
Well, for myself, for my own experience, فاش بديت كنعرف على الديترمينيزم وعلى الفري ويل